Welcome to The Right Stuff. I'm Sheena, and today we're talking to Kay-Ann. Kay-Ann is the founder of Shadow Publishing, and she started the company when she realized that she had a lot of things that she could teach authors. Join us today as Kay-Ann discusses social media, her publishing company, and more. Because when it comes to writing and publishing, Kay-Ann has the right stuff. Don't forget to subscribe and rate this podcast.
I'm a lesfic author from the Midwest of the United States. My first book was written in 2003. I didn't publish it for 8 years. I started publishing all my short stories and all my books once I started learning how to self-publish. Then I got approached by other authors and they kept asking, how are you doing it? And I gave out a lot of free advice, and then somebody suggested, why don't you start a publishing company and get paid for this advice? So I did. And that's how Shadow Publishing came to be. And it was a rocky start. I mean, like all new companies and startups, it was a learning curve. And my authors were learning with me. Fortunately, I have a good crew of authors behind me now, and they see how hard I work for them and how much I really do teach them. And I think that's a unique perspective in the publishing industry because I actually teach the authors how to publicize themselves. It can't always be up to the publisher because a lot of publishing companies don't do that.
Absolutely. All right, so one of the things that you teach them would be the social media aspect.
Yes, absolutely. I actually give each new author a check sheet and tell them to get a fan page, to get, not just Facebook, but Google Plus, and there's things in Yahoo you can access. There's LinkedIn, there's Twitter. If they've got a group of books that we're taking on, I'll even help them make a web page. My background is in running businesses. I've done it all my life. I mean, I started my first business at 21. My major in college was computers. Not that I'm an expert in computers or anything, but I can set them up on a basic website that they can maintain so that I don't have to have full control, and if we ever part ways, it's still theirs.
That's a really amazing and refreshing approach.
Shadow's motto is a publisher should stand behind their authors. And they should. And I do. I mean, I'm not taking on their work just for my benefit. I mean, I'm not making all the money. In fact, I found out that our contracts are some of the most generous out there, which really pleases me because as I'm learning, they're benefiting, and then they're going to bring more work to me. I mean, I signed over a dozen new authors this year alone. That tells me that the word is out there, that they like what I'm doing, and it's going to be beneficial to us both.
So let's talk about the social media side of what you teach them. Do you have a preference for Facebook, Twitter, Google+? Like, where do you think authors should start?
I think Facebook is getting too big. Back in the late 90s and early turn of this century, the big thing was AOL. All of that will have its own cycle. And I honestly believe Facebook is on a downturn. I don't know what will replace it, but I'm hoping that I'm savvy enough to recognize it. But Facebook right now is the in thing because you can have a fan page. You can have a book page for each book. That you can also link in with Facebook, your Twitter account, your LinkedIn account, your Word, which is a good place to have a blog because it's free. That's another thing that I teach my authors. You can do a lot of this for free without hiring a publicist. Not that you shouldn't at some point, but when you're first starting out, you have no money. And if you're getting into writing books for the money, especially lesfic, you will not ever be making the kind of money that you think you will.
Do you think the market is just too small?
It's very narrow. I know a lot of lesfic authors who are expanding to mainstream so that they can cross over. And you're seeing it more and more where a straight person will read lesfic because it's still a good story. I have a lot of male followers, and that used to bother me until I asked a couple of them, why do you read my work? Is it the sex scenes? Because I don't do fade to black. And they said, yeah, that's nice, but no, that's not why we read your work. It's because a well-written story is a well-written story. So you can cross over and not market your books towards lesfic anymore. And then when a lesbian does find it, it's like, oh, what a happy, It's a story with a lesbian character. It isn't a lesbian story.
Okay, so just back to Facebook again. You said you can make individual pages for each of your books. Is that important?
I did it sort of as a social experiment. I'm seeing more and more people follow. Like, this year, my most popular book was my Small Town Angel book, and I don't know why that one's so popular. I actually think a couple of my other ones were better, but it appealed, and it's obviously word of mouth and all the marketing I did on it. But I did the same amount of work for my other books. So why this one? Maybe it was just the time of year, but having that book page and seeing people like the page, and then they might type it into the search engine and find out, oh, well, Blown Away has this page, I'm going to like it, and maybe she'll do a sequel, or, you know what I mean? So that they stay on top of that.
So it's good for the search on Facebook itself?
Well, on Facebook itself, but things you do on Facebook end up on Google searches. Now, Google's fantastic. I think the last time I Googled myself, and it's been a while, I had 19 pages of things that came up.
And was that predominantly from your efforts?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime you get tagged or anytime you put a picture out there, because I have Twitter, LinkedIn, WordPress, all linked into Facebook, it also goes on Google.
Okay. So you've created this whole network of social media that all feeds itself in each other.
That's correct. Okay. And then you have people who follow like your blog, and I don't know why it happened, but my blog more than doubled this year. Which is fantastic because...
From how many followers to how many followers?
I now have over 6,000 on just that.
And how long have you been doing it?
The blog itself, I would say about 4 years now.
Do you think it could be a time thing? You've just hit a good length of time that you're consistent on it?
I think with each book, each one that becomes more popular, and as you get your name out there, you know, they want to know more about you. And I'm pretty open on social media. As he said, I'm very active. As a result, they want to know more.
Okay.
I mean, I have 4,000 followers just on my friends list. Actually, it's 4,500, and they max out at 5,000. I've built that up these last 5, 6 years, maybe even 7 years now. And that was a concerted effort. I mean, it wasn't just other lesfic authors that I wanted to know about, but people who had read my books and, oh, look, she's on here, you know, because I gave a lot of free stuff out there for a while, and those people followed from those free sites to Facebook. And then from Facebook, they see the Twitter, they see the WordPress, they see, you know.
So do you actively cross-promote your various social media platforms?
Yes, absolutely. It's the only way, because not everybody is on Facebook, and a lot of people detest it. Not everybody's on Twitter, not everybody's on LinkedIn, or not everybody's on Google+. By having all of these things to back you up, your book gets more and more exposure. Also, by having friends on Facebook or Twitter or Google+ or what have you, who will repost that or will give their opinion of your book, all of those things help sell you books.
Okay. If you had to pick just one social media outlet that you find drives the most actual sales, which one would you say that is?
At this time, it would be Facebook. But again, I think that is cycling down. We'll see. You know, I mean, you've got some pretty smart cookies steering that boat, so maybe they'll outlast, you know, the cycle.
I find it's the same for me. I have a much smaller Facebook following than I do on Twitter, but it drives much more sales when I actually do something on it.
Well, one of the things I've noticed in Facebook in the last month, maybe 2 months now, is they are targeting authors. For a while, I thought they were just targeting lesbians, and lesbian authors especially, but I've heard it from other authors. Facebook's cutting down on how many posts you can do. I'm in about 1,000 groups on Facebook, and predominantly they're lesbian groups. Only about 25, 30 of them are lesbian book groups. And to be honest, when I started this, I didn't know those groups existed. And I'm sure there's a lot of other lesbians who would be my main audience who would see that and not know. You know, they're just getting on Facebook, or they've been on Facebook a while. They use it for gaming or just chatting with their friends. But they have no clue that these groups are out there. I mean, I've started several lesbian fiction groups. Some of them lean towards certain things. The one that I have most of the time is called Lesfic Reading Group. And that group is just predominantly to interview authors. so that they can showcase their books. You get to know those authors in ways that you hadn't thought you could, ask before. Occasionally you get people in there who shouldn't ask certain questions. We call them trolls. But for the most part, it's a positive experience. And some authors are so shy. People would be surprised to find out I can be shy. But I make myself get out there and get myself noticed because I do have a large body of work. I just published my 80th book.
80, my gosh.
Yes. But see, that 80 also includes novels, novellas, and short stories.
Okay, but still, that's a pretty big body of work. Do you find that there's a tipping point on social media? So once you hit X amount of Facebook friends, then you start seeing more traction, or once you hit so many followers on Twitter, or?
Yes and no. There's an upside to that and a downside. The upside is, yes, you're getting a lot of people, but the way Facebook does their generating, you can max out your account. You have 5,000 followers, and they won't see anything you put up there because of the way Facebook is set up.
So how do you overcome that?
You're active. You go into the groups. You talk to the people. You're not just promoting you, yourself, and you. You ask a question. You get friends who like whatever meme you're posting or reposting.
Okay.
If you put up a picture, it's noticed. By generating a flow like that, you're getting a lot of followers who are active on your timeline. If you aren't active, Facebook's going to notice that and slow you down.
So you got to behave like a human and not like a marketing machine.
Exactly. It's called spam for a reason. I try and caution my authors not to put up more than once a week, and twice every month is really sufficient, especially when they have a new book out. Because first of all, when they have a new book out, I'm going to promote them.
Okay.
That's part of our deal. I initially promote them probably to about 100,000 people. Of those 100,000 people, you will be lucky if you get a 2 to 3% return. It's pretty dismal money-wise.
Yeah.
However, word of mouth. Then the author comes back and they start hitting it. We also have beta readers and other people who have read the book who are going to start commenting on it. That builds up and generates conversation.
Okay.
And that's what drives Facebook is the likes and the interaction and the tags. All of that keeps Facebook going.
What do you think the lifespan is of a new novel on social media?
Couple of months. I've seen some authors flog the same book for well over a year. I think that's a mistake. That's just my personal observation. I myself am extremely prolific. I know I'm an oddity, but I have one of those minds that does that, so I might as well do it while it's working because it's not going to do it forever. I mean, I actually have slowed down. I only got out 4 or 5 books this year. Last year I got 17.
That's more than one a month.
Yeah, but what happens is you get a story. Like, for instance, I have a Malice series. I started that as an experiment about 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't think I could write a murder mystery, but I really wanted to. So I talked to a friend of mine who writes like Stephen King. She said, give it a try. And I was just in love with that show called Dexter. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, I have.
Well, Dexter fascinated the premise of it, that he was getting away with it. And then I got to thinking, I bet you I could turn this into a lesbian story. So the book series was supposed to have 5 books in it. And it's about a lesbian serial killer that kicks ass, does things that you want to do and can't get away with, and she gets away with it. My 19th book should be out in January, maybe February.
And how are people reacting to this?
I get emails every week asking for the next book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because each book ends on like a question or makes you want to read the next book.
Do you think a series is key to selling books? Because I'm seeing a lot of authors writing series in order to sort of gain momentum for their work.
I think one of the things that authors, and I'm guilty of this too, is you fall in love with your characters. You don't want them to end any more than the readers do. any author who doesn't write for themselves, if they're just writing for the marketing value or the financial gain, that's a big mistake. You write for yourself. Now, when I started writing, first of all, I didn't think I could. I mean, I'd written stories, and I had a vast body of stories that I didn't even think about until I started publishing them. And then I started looking at those old stories and going, I can do this. People are liking this. They're asking for more. And the characters, you don't want to just let them go. I mean, in some stories, yes, that's why it should be a standalone story. It should be left to the imagination of the reader what happened to them.
So do you really think that readers can tell the difference between an author who loves the story they're writing or a story that they're writing for commercial purposes?
Absolutely. Look at Shades of Grey. That is the most poorly edited book that has ever sold to the masses.
Okay, so back to social media. We've spoken quite a lot about Facebook. Let's talk about Twitter. What are the pros of Twitter?
Twitter is short, sweet, to the point. You can have a lot of followers. You can follow a lot of whomever. You can have an interaction with somebody famous, and you can put them in your tweet. I just got asked by one of my authors, and I explained to her that sending something of yours, like mentioning somebody in your tweet about your book that is famous, would be rude unless you actually know that person, because otherwise you're on their coattails for the fame that they have built up, and that would be rude. I mean, it's different. I'm a little more well-known, so I use what I know and people who know me to recommend my author's books. That's different.
Yeah.
I don't know everything about Twitter. One of the only reasons I did Twitter is obviously to have the chain. I actually found by having my WordPress site for my blog, that actually generated more because they want to see how you write. They also want to see when your books are coming out. They also want to see your thoughts on certain things. Some people blog voraciously, daily. I couldn't do that. At first, I resisted. I did not want to do a blog because I thought I'd have to do it all the time. And, every now and then, something will come on me, a thought, and I just write about it. Or I vent a little bit. I release a book, and so I tell my fans about it. And if they're following your blog, they get an email saying, hey, this is out there now.
Okay.
And they can choose to read it or not.
You also mentioned Google+. Google+ has gotten a lot of flack from people because it's trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, and no one company can be everything to everyone.
No.
I mean, as I said, Facebook's cycling through. Google+ will have the same problem. I mean, even Microsoft has had some real bonehead ideas over the years. Vista,
Absolutely.
anyone? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, just like I'm not everyone's cup of tea as a publisher. Do I have some unhappy authors? Absolutely. The majority of them are happy because I do give that personal touch. So no one company gives you everything you want. And they can't. Everybody's got different personalities.
So what would you use Google+ for then?
I use it as a platform to find some more groups that have lesbians that I might not be able to touch otherwise. Oh, that sounded bad. But I might reach some new readers that might not go on Facebook. Maybe they're Facebook phobic or Twitter phobic, or they've never heard of me. They're new to the genre. They didn't know there are books out there just for lesbians. Up until I didn't know there were other authors like me out there. It was scary. I never came out to my family. I figured at this point, if they haven't figured it out, they're pretty obtuse. But with this many books out there, they can Google me at any time and find out everything. My son didn't find out until 2 or 3 years ago. He thought I just wrote dirty novels. Then he found out I wrote lesfic. And then I was like, we were going to his place for Christmas. And I'm like, you didn't know? And he's like, I just thought you wrote about it. I didn't know you practiced it. And I'm like, Merry Christmas. Your mother's a lesbian.
I think we should have show segments just on people coming out. I think it's hilarious.
Well, that's one of the questions I ask in my group. I ask the authors, what's your coming out story? I had it turned back on me, of course, when they got to ask me questions. And I said, I'll let you know when that happens, because I have never come out, per se.
And what was the reaction to that?
Well, they see how prolific I am. They see how active I am on social media. How could my family not know?
Yes, exactly.
They don't care. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm out there waving a flag. I would, except I live in a narrow-minded part of the United States. I can't wait to move. It would be very difficult to be flamboyantly out here. I lead a very sedentary life, very quiet, I live in a cave, you know. You know, I have a 3-story house I live in, and my kids are grown and gone. I write all the time. I publish all the time. That's my life right now, and I'm okay with that. I ride a motorcycle, which is totally impractical. Like today, it was 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
I take it that's cold. I'm in.
Yes, it's very cold. It's supposed to snow.
Oh wow! Okay, that is rather cold. Yeah, it doesn't snow here at all, ever.
Where are you exactly?
South Africa.
Well, I knew that part. I mean, it's so big.
Johannesburg.
Oh, okay.
So, the main city, the biggest economic hub in the country.
I'm working actually on a book right now called Doctored. It's about doctors without borders that takes place partially in Africa. And I have a friend who lives in South Africa, and she's like, well, you can't write about this, and you can't write about this. And it's like, believe me, if people use their imagination enough that even though I've never been to the country, I can write about it.
Yeah. Yes, I get asked a lot about South Africa. I think we're heavily misrepresented in American media, I must tell you, especially our accents.
I was wondering if I'd be able to understand you.
Well, yeah.
No problem.
Yes. I have, well, we have many accents, but my accent is one of the sort of more educated ones, if you like.
Well, you know, when I talk to people in Australia, because I do talk to people all over the world, like Australians have that Cockney influence. And that can be hard to decipher.
Yes.
And I've teased my friends and said, you know, I'm going to take a foreign language. I'm going to take Australian.
That's excellent. Okay, Can, let's wrap up with 2 things. The first thing is give us just some quick, really good tips for social media, and then end off with just talking about your book, your company, whatever you want to promote. This is going to go out in January.
Okay.
Okay.
For social media, you can do it too much. Keep in mind, anything that you put out there will be out there forever. So if you've got a gripe, if you've got to vent, keep in mind, whatever you type up and put out there in social media, wherever you put it, it's out there forever. It can be copied and pasted. It can be screenshot. So always try to be upbeat. Always try to be maybe a little humorous, but never nasty, never pointed, never something that can come back to bite you in the backside.
Absolutely. Wise words.
On social media, connect them, because you never know what the next big thing is. You know, you've got people with Snapchat and Tumblr and all those other things. And I've got accounts for all of that, but I'm not active with those because I don't really have the time. I mean, I myself have 80 books out there in various languages now. I've got more on the way. As of tomorrow, my book Pirated Love is coming out. It's my first historical novel of that genre. I've written a historical novel once before, and it was well received. This one, all the beta readers are like, when's the next one coming out?
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, that tells me I grabbed them, and I did mission accomplished.
Okay, so where can people find your work?
I do have my own website. It's www.kanmeinel.com. That's spelled KANNEMEINEL. Then also on my business website, which is shadoepublishing.com, and that's spelled ShadoePubliishing.com. And the reason I chose Shadoe, you'd have to go to the website and read the definition of what Shadoe is. It was a happy accident when I chose that name.
Okay, and so just quickly, your latest book, what's that about?
Pirated Love takes place in the 1500s. A woman is traveling to the Caribbean where her father is the governor of Polynesia for the king, and it is hijacked by some pirates. And the pirate captain is a woman.
Fantastic.
She gives her an option. You either service my men or service me until your father pays the ransom. She didn't intend to fall in love with her, though.
That's the best kind of story, though.
Well, then I go through the first year of marriage.
Oh.
It's pretty hard.
Okay.
My books always combine a lot of what I believe would be real-life drama, misunderstandings, things that you have to work through. But there's always the basis of love.
Fantastic. Okay, and thank you so much for your time.
You bet.
That was K.Ann from Shadoe Publishing. I'm Sheena, and you've been listening to The Right Stuff. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and find show notes and more on thelesbiantalkshow.com.